Hello everyone, thank you very much for watching this communication, and thanks also to the organizer of the International Conference on Teaching, Education and Learning. My name is Ana Verde and I would like to speak about the future of education after pandemic, the impact of COVID on Spanish education. The effects of the pandemic have affected and continue to affect the education methods every day. The purpose of this presentation is to share what we learned about the response to COVID-19. Results provides a basis for reflection about the pros and cons of teaching and learning modalities in higher education. So, the current situation demands that we continue to rethink what is the best methodology for the teaching so that the education of the students is not affected in any way. So this is the content for the presentation. Okay, so now, as the result of the situation caused by the state of alarm driven by COVID-19, the educational system here in Spain has forced to adapt to the new capacity requirements, and in many cases, this their usual activity. So, the Community of Madrid in Spain forced the closure of education centers on March 12, 2020. This confinement was extended until June 21st of 2020. Thus, the longest state of alarm in the history of Spain ended after 3 months of confinement to stop the spread of COVID, and so-called new normal began. Movement restriction between the Spanish provinces ended and coexistence with the virus began. From March to September 2020, due to declaration of the state of alarm by the national government, the educative centers could not be open and they had to optimally adapt to this fact. Each educational center had to base its teaching on the online mode and adapt teachers and students to this new reality. Video conference software was used to avoid social disconnection. So, the pandemic in that moment revealed the shortcoming of education institutions, so many about infrastructure and training of teachers in ICT tools. However, it also meant improvement. The teacher was trained in new online methodologies and so interested in learning new teaching tools in the face of the new reality and challenges that arose. So, in the case of Spain, as of September 2020, Spanish universities have used the teaching methods detailed in the following section that we are going to see now. So, second point, teaching and learning modalities in higher education during the pandemic. As of September 2020, Spanish universities have used the teaching methods detailed in the following sections. First, present learning. Present learning consists of both the students and the teacher sharing the same physical classroom. This type of teaching methodology could not be applied from March to September 2020 due to declaration of the state of alarm by the government of the nation in Spain. However, as of September 2020, this teaching modality became eligible and educational centers were reopened. The second type is distance education. Distance education, also known as online learning, is a type of education developed using technology that allows students to attend classes from remote location. The non-face-to-face teaching model is become increasingly popular in the field of higher education. Distance education is characterized by having an existing organizational infrastructure which allows the educational objective of online learning to be developed. We must not confuse this type of teaching, distance education, with emergency remote education. In exceptional situations that impede the normal functionation of institutions and face-to-face educational centers, teachers may be forced to quickly adapt their pedagogical activity to a virtual environment. This is known here as emergency not to face to teaching. Other type is blended learning. This model is based on a combination of classroom of education and online education in various forms. So, hybrid learning. Hybrid education assumes that half of the students in the class attending the classroom and the other half follow the class from home, partially online and partially face-to-face. The use of hybrid flexible instruction methodologies is relatively recent in higher education. In our case, from September 2020, in a Spanish university that follows this methodology, groups of face-to-face students and online students alternated to achieve social distance without having to modify the structure of the classroom. Other type is mirror rooms. With the accumulated incidence of COVID, one of the options used in Spanish university education was so-called mirror rooms, which allows face-to-face classes, but at a safe distance, ensuring the distance of at least 1.5 meters between the chairs. To maintain the safety distance measure in the case of not having large enough classroom, the group of students is divided into subgroups. Half of the groups is in a classroom with a teacher, while the other half is in an adjoining classroom, watching the class by live video conference. The advantages of this typology compared to the hybrid education in which half of the students follow the class from home, or compared to the blended education in which face-to-face education is alternative with the online teaching, is that in the mirror rooms, the students do not depend on the resources or the connection in their homes, since the entire process is carried out in the educational centers, including that online part. They have their classmates in the class for support and also for motivation, and are be able to continue enjoying the content with the classmate and university environment. The drawbacks of this type of methodology are the need to have enough classroom, in addition to have technical resources, necessary to broadcast the class live and personal and people who can control this mirror classroom. Another disadvantage supposes students do not have any engagement directly with the lecturer, who will be standing in another classroom, being a similar situation to that in asynchronous online classes. In university studies, this methodology may be flexible, but not so much in other educational stages in which it would not be easy for a student to be alone in a class and also to pay attention. Conclusion is that the pandemic has modified the vital context in which study plans are implemented for two reasons for us. First, the use of new platforms has been necessary considering that the circumstances that have arisen require different methodologies from those used when the curriculum was originally designed. Second, both the knowledge and the professional competencies required to implement these methodologies are in the spotlight, requiring the training of professionals, but also requiring the training of the students. So, present learning involves contact with the student, the elimination of technical difficulties, equal resources for all the students, and also elimination of potential family conciliation problems from both a teacher and also for a student. On the other hand, personal learning also have disadvantages. The time needed to travel to the location of the class and also the impossibility of connecting with the students who live far from the educational center or even abroad. In the case of online classes are increasingly being held at prestigious international universities both in America and Europe, and which any subject can be carried out without to be face-to-face contact. In the case of virtual teaching, allows for us more flexibility for learners who, for example, live in the distant areas, but also for teachers from different parts of the world. The platform used to broadcast classes live for the emergency remote education could be 100% online or blending. So we can see there are advantages and disadvantages. The benefit of blending education are for professors, but also are for students. With the potential of connection through the internet, new learning possibilities arise. With added resources that help towards comfort, accessibility, effectiveness, and more options to access education. Classes in hybrid mode allows for optimization of the use of academic resources and grant control of the capacity, and social distance as there are fewer people in the classroom, such the social distance measure imposed by the state can be better complied with this type of education. In the case of mirror classroom, they overcome many of difficulties that digital divide can use. So, in conclusion, One of the direct consequences of the pandemic has been the need for both teachers and students to modify teaching methodologies. During the periods in which the cumulative incidence of COVID-19 was at very high levels, it was necessary to engage in distant education or blended education, and teachers had to quickly readjust to this change. This adaptation has meant a great enrichment of their knowledge and new didactic resources to teach their classes. Thanks to training during the distance education and blended education, face-to-face teachers have learned two new skills. As a result of the enrichment of their knowledge in new didactic resources, innovation in teaching methodologies and the ICT knowledge of teachers improved thanks to the pandemic. The literature highlights deficiencies in the transition from face-to-face teaching to online teaching due to the weakness of the online teaching infrastructure, the inexperience of teachers, the digital divide, and a complex home environment. However, the advances producing the use of educational technology to support remote learning since the pandemic became a new reality. The effort to use this technology and the large-scale advances in distant and online education during the pandemic compel us to face an unprecedented technology revolution and take advantage of it. It is important to highlight the fact that if the pandemic had not had this impact on education, the use of technology evolution in educational environment might not have evolved so quickly in the last few months. This research provides new perspective on a category of teaching education in the age of COVID. Learning can be carried out in an efficient, high quality, and in a satisfactory manner. We have to think about that we have to choose or through the different methods that are in the different contexts, and we have to adapt to us. We must choose a modality without affecting the education. So for me, that's all. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and we hope you found this presentation interesting. Thank you so much, and see you very soon. Bye bye.